Okay, so now we'll start with the Marpol NX5. So NX5 is generally deals with the regulation prevention by the garbage from the ship. So the pollution which is generally created by the garbage from the ship. So these regulations, these NX5s are basically deals with that regulation. So in this Marpol NX5, so all the regulation and all the enforcement and what are the requirements that should be fulfilled and what are the discharge criteria, so that all generally these all things generally present in the annex 5, so that we have to follow in regards with the garbage, when you are discharging the garbage into the sea. So with regards to that you have to follow. So these are the legal requirements. So these are the legal requirements who are the, you can say, garbage from the ship can be just as deadly to the marine life and as a oil or chemical. So these are because the, you know that the garbage generally what we are having the garbage, generally the garbage generally what we are producing from the ship, so that can be of the multiple type. So and that can be the mixed also. So like the paper, garbage, paper, plastics, and many more racks and many more chemicals, so that can cause the, so generally these are the charts of the time taken for object to dissolve at sea. So you can see that this the charts: paper bus tickets 2 4 weeks, cotton clothes 1 to 5 months, rope 3 to 14 months, woolen clothes 1 year, painted wood 13 years, tin can 100 years, aluminum can 200 to 500 years, plastic bottle 450 years. So you can imagine that how much time it will take to dissolve into the sea, means that there can be dissolved in the water fully. So you can say no any materials, no any garbage over there, they can be dissolved easily or within a second, except the food wastage. So food wastage they can be dissolved easily, but except the food wastage, so these are all the materials they are not dissolved easily. They takes generally they takes time from the 2 weeks to the 450 years. So that's why the all garbages from the ships which generally generated from the ship, they are polluted. We cannot discharge into the sea. So the Marpol Convention sought to eliminate the reduce the amount of the garbage being dumped into the sea from ship. So under Annex 5 of the convention, garbage includes all kinds of food, domestic and operational waste, excluding fresh fish generated during the normal operation of the vessel and liable to be disposed of continuously or periodically. Generally, this is the applicable fresh fish, like when the fishing vessel is there. So for fishing vessel, it is not applicable. So fishing for the fresh fish, generally they are the fresh fish. So even some fish you are catching and you can dispose into the sea without any regulation. Now these are the special areas under the Annex 5. So these are the special area under the Annex 5. So Mediterranean Sea, Baltic Sea, Black Sea, Red Sea, Gulf area, North Sea, the wider Caribbean region, and the Antarctic Sea. So these are the sea area where the you have to follow the special regulation with regards to Annex 5. So these are the special area, and outside the special area, they are the different regulation, and inside the special area, they are the different regulation. So these are the regulation, the different adaptation regulation. So implementation. So the generally which will be implemented by this Annex 5. So the ship generally which are more than 400 gross tonnage. So you can see this line: implementation and enforcement was also the focus of a further new regulation 9 adopted in 1995, which requires all ships of 400 gross tonnage and above, and every ship certified to carry 15% or more, and every fixed or floating platform engaged in exploration or exploitation of the seabed to provide a garbage record book and record all disposal and incinerator operation. So those ships which are more than 400 gross tonnage and less than 400 gross tonnage, but they are carrying the more than 50%. So they have to follow the Annex 5 rules regulation, and they should be provided with the garbage record book. So and also the rig platform. So the floating platform, generally the dredging rigging. So this platform. So these platforms should also complies with this Annex 5. So in that garbage record, generally we write the date, time, position of the ship, description of the garbage, and the estimated amount of the incinerated or the discharge must be logged. So in the garbage record book, generally in the garbage record book, what generally we mention. So we logged whenever we are discharging the any garbage to the shore facility. That time also that all the data we generally write. So first of all, in the garbage record book, you will have the time, date, and position, latitude, longitude, or the at what, at port, at which port. Then after that it will having the class of the garbage. So what you are the plastic, then plastic, how much the plastic, quantity of the plastic. Then after that it there will be the sign. So signed by the, generally the garbage record book is deal with the chief officer. So the garbage record book must be kept for a period of 2 years after the date of the last entry. So garbage record book generally it is protected for the 2 years when the last entry is made. So for the 2 years we have to keep this record book. Like in the oil record book, generally we are keeping that oil record book for the after the last entry 3 years. But in this we are generally keeping it for the 2 years. So that we have already seen. Now shipboard waste management. So what are the shipboard waste management? So every ship of 100 gross tonnage instead of 400 gross tonnage required by the super shaded marble Annex 5 and the above. The every ship which is certified to carry 15%. So these are the basically the process in the waste management plan should be given over there. So what are the first is the garbage minimization, garbage collection. So garbage minimization is what? So generally the we have to consume generally we have, like you are using the paper, you are throwing anything, so you have to minimize the garbage. So you should cut off the garbage. You should whenever the you can utilize that, you can utilize. If you don't some garbage which is totally wasted, so then only you can throw it in the garbage bag. Another the garbage collection. So garbage collection is also needed. You should not throw here and there. The garbage collection should be there at one point. Another garbage storage. So garbage storage. So all the garbage collection you have made. So you have to store it at one place. Generally the garbage storeroom. Now after that the garbage processing. So garbage processing is generally that is the compressor. So generally compressed. We generally like the plastics, papers, all the things. If you will if you will carry the plastics, papers, if you will not compress, what will happen? Their volume will increase. So just decreasing their volume, we are compressing that, and after the compressing, that is the processing of the garbage. And after the processing, we generally dispose the garbage to the port. So garbage disposal. So that is that. So equipment used on board for handling of garbage. So equipment generally the compactor we are using for the compressing the garbage. The designation of the person or the person in charge of the implementing the garbage management plan. So implement the designation of the person, generally the chief officer is the in charge for the implementation of the garbage management plan. So GMP generally looked after the chief officer. They are taking care of all the things. Now we will see that the what are the various annexes 5 the garbage is there. So plastic, food wastage, domestic waste. So all must be know what are the plastic, food wastage, domestic wastage, cooking oil, incinerator ashes, operational wastage. So these are the basic the garbage generally generated from the ship. Cargo residues, animal carcasses. So animals generally these are found on the animal carrier or the livestock ship. Fishing gear. So fishing gear is also the garbage. And another is the cleaning agent and additives. Like you are cleaning the deck, you are cleaning the deck, you are cleaning the hatch cover, pontoons. So that times we are using the any cleaning agents. So that also comes under the garbage. that is the operational waste. The chemical used in is not a harmful substance in accordance with the criteria in the MARPOL Annex 3. So this means the substance identified by criteria such as the short-term aquatic hazards, rapidly or non-rapidly degradable substance for which there are adequate chronic toxicity data available, and the substance for which adequate chronic toxicity data are not available. So the chemical used does not contain any components which are known to be the uh, carcinogenic and the mutagenic and the reprotoxic CMR in order to identify the such component. So these are the basic the chemical components. So we don't go in the depth. So incinerator we generally use in the you have seen in the engine room. So in incinerator generally we are burning the papers. Sometimes we are burning the papers also. We are not burning the plastic in that, but we are burning the paper and incinerator and like any garbage which can be burned and which can be formed in the ash. So we are burning that so that we are minimizing the volume of the garbage. Generally by burning this we are minimizing the volume of the garbage. These are the storage. So garbage collected from the various areas through the ship should be delivered to the designated processing or storage location. So garbage that must be returned to port for disposal may require long-term storage depending on the length of the voyage or the availability of the port reception facility. So garbage should be stored in a manner which avoids health and safety hazards. So generally we are having the garbage room. So garbage room, why we are having the garbage? Because we are on the ocean going vessel. So in that it is required to store. It is not possible to store the garbage in the room because for a 20 days, 15 days, 1 month you will be on the sailing. So you cannot throw the garbage in the sea. So you have to store the garbage. So from where you will store? So there is the store room, the garbage store room. And in the garbage stream, there is the various drums, separate cans, separate drums, boxes. So, like the for the plastic, different drums will be there. For the papers, different drums will be there. For the mm, well, like for the food waste, different drums will be there. E-waste, different drums will be there. So, like this, the different drums and different box will be there. So, in that, we will classify the cargo and we will accordingly we will do that. Okay, now this is the placards. So the placards, all vessel of 12 meters or more in length are required to display placards which provide information about the garbage laws. The placards should be visible in areas where garbage may be generated and in full view of crew and passengers. The wording for these placards should be similar to the following example. So these are the placards. Generally, in this, all the details will be written there. The where you can discharge or not. What are the garbage? What are the instructions that you have to follow? So these are the placards generally posted near the garbage room and the various places where the garbage can be extracted and where garbage can be generated. These are the training. So training generally we conduct the drill. So in the drill, generally we familiarize all the details and all the things. Okay, so these are the form of the garbage record book. So these are the basically the sample of the garbage record book. Now this is the garbage and the garbage management. So garbage means all kind of the food wastage, domestic wastage and operational wastage. All plastics, cargo residues, incinerator assets, cooking oil, fishing gear and animal carcasses generated during the normal operation of the ship and liable to be disposed of continuously or periodically except those substances which are defined or listed in other annexes to the present convention. So garbage does not include the fresh fish and the parts. So we have already discussed this part in the earlier one only. So these are the basically the what are the garbage we are having and what are the what garbage that it should be considered under the Annex 5 MARPOL. So these are the We have already seen the description of the garbage. So these are the plastic, food waste, domestic waste, cooking oil, incinerator waste, operational wastage, cargo residues, animal carcasses, fishing gear. So the entries should be maintained in the garbage record book. What are the entries should be given in the garbage record book? So the entries in the garbage record book shall be made on each of the following occasions. So first one is the when the garbage is discharged to a reception facility ashore or to the other ships. So other ships mean that in any ships which is generally sometimes a barge, small ships they are having. So any time when you are discharging the, so at that time you have to write the date and time of the discharge, port or the facility or the name of the ship, categories of the garbage discharge, estimated amount of the discharge for each category in cubic meter, signature of officer in charge of the operation. When garbage is incinerated, so when you are burning the garbage, so that time also you have to mention in that garbage record book. So what are the things you will mention? Date and time and start and stop of incineration. So incinerator so when you are starting the incinerator and when you are stopping the incinerator, that time you have to write position of the ship, latitude, longitude at the start and stop of the incineration. Categories of the garbage incinerator, estimated amount of incinerator in the tube, signature of the officer same. So when garbage is discharged into the sea in accordance with the regulation 456 of MARPOL Annex 5, date and time of the discharge, position of the ship, latitude, longitude, and note for cargo residue discharge include discharge start and stop position. Category of garbage discharge, estimated amount. Generally, these what are the garbage generally we discharge into sea? Mainly only the food wastage and the operational wastage. Like you have cleaned the tank, you have cleaned the bilge, you have cleaned the decks, wash the deck, accommodation washing. So these are the wastage. It comes under the this category. Accidental or other exceptional discharge or loss of garbage into the sea, including in offense. So if this is the accidentally, some maybe possible that you have thrown the garbage accidentally, or some people who maybe not aware of the garbage and they have thrown that garbage into the sea. So that also you have to enter into the garbage record book. So these are the garbage record book pages. So you can see here. So these are the class A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. So this you have to maintain, and these are the date and time, position of the ship, category, estimated amount, how much amount you have discharged to sea, to reception facility or incinerator. So where you have discharged, at sea or the airport or the you have burned the cargo. So that you have to write, and the at last there will be the signature of the in charge officer. So and last there will be the master signature and the date. So these are the fine, and the same like the marble in the annex 1 and annex 2. There are the fine if you are throwing the garbage or the plastic in the sea. So there will be the huge number of fines. So that you have to pay. So that you have to understand. So different country will impose the different fine. So accordingly you have to see that things. Now we'll come to the annex 6. So annex 6 is the air pollution from the ship. So what are the these are the application. So where the application applies to the 400 gross tonnage and above ship which generally carry an international air pollution prevention certificate. So this is the IAPP certificate. This certificate must be on board at delivery for a ship constructed keel laid after 19 May 2005. For ship construction before that, the IAPP certificate must be on board the first scheduled dry docking after 19 May 2005, but not later than 19 May 2008. Ship of less than 400 ton still have to comply with the legislation where applicable, but in their cases, administration may establish appropriate measures in order to ensure that Annex 6 is complied with. Now, what are the regulations under the Annex 6 are there? So, Regulation 12 ozone depletion substance, nitrogen oxide, NOx, sulfur oxide, SOx, volatile organic compound VOC, the seaboard incineration reception facility, fuel oil quality and availability. Sometimes the fuel oil quality they change. They upgraded to the good grade of the oil so that their pollution, their smokes will cause the less pollution. So these are the emission pollutant. So these are the emission pollutant criteria. What are the different exhaust gas components are there? Why it is better? So what are the different outcomes, different problems they generally having, like the nitrogen oxide, they will create the ground ozone formation. These will create the respiratory issue, acid rain. Sulfur oxide, they will cause the respiratory issue, acid rain. So particulate matter, so they will cause the air pollution, respiratory and heart issue. Hydrocarbon, they will cause the volatile organic compounds, toxic ground ozone formation. Carbon dioxide, they will cause the greenhouse gas and the global warming. So these are the regulation under the Annex 6. Okay, we will see the brief video of the Annex 5 also, so that we will have the better idea.
Hello friends, before getting into the video today, let's discuss some facts. It takes 2 to 4 weeks for a paper bus ticket to dissolve into the sea. A cotton cloth might take up to 3 months to dissolve into the sea. A painted piece of wood takes 13 long years to dissolve into the sea. A tin can takes 100 years. An aluminium can takes 200 to 400 years, and a plastic bottle takes a whopping 450 years to dissolve into the sea. Yes, that is correct. 450 years to dissolve. You must have got a clear idea how deadly can garbage become for the marine life. So, let's get started. MARPOL Annex 5 is the regulation for the prevention of pollution by garbage from ships. Annex 5 entered into force on 31st of December 1988. Now what is garbage? Garbage means all kind of food waste, domestic waste, operational waste, cargo residues which are generated during the normal operation of the ship. MARPOL Annex 5 came with an objective to reduce and eliminate the amount of garbage being dumped into the sea from ships. In this video, we'll be discussing to which all ships Annex 5 applies to, special areas as per Annex 5, categories of garbage and their discharge criteria, the garbage management plan, as well as the garbage record book. So, let's get going. MARPOL Annex 5 applies to all ships. By all ships, I mean everything operating in the marine environment, including the offshore platforms, rigs, pleasure crafts, and even the yachts. Now let us look at the special areas established under Annex 5. The Mediterranean Sea, the Baltic Sea area, the Black Sea area, the Red Sea area, the Gulf area, the North Sea, the wider Caribbean region, and lastly the Antarctic area. Next, and the very important thing, are categories of garbage. As per MARPOL Annex 5, shipboard generated garbage is grouped into some categories. We'll be discussing about these categories one by one. Plastics are garbage that consist or include plastic in any form, including synthetic ropes, synthetic fishing nets, plastic garbage bag, etc. Garbage under this category is absolutely prohibited to be discharged at sea. Next category is food waste. Food waste means any spoiled or unspoiled food substances which includes fruits, vegetables, dairy products, poultry, meat products, and food scraps generated aboard ship. Food waste may be discharged at sea under specific circumstances and requirements, which we'll be discussing later. Next category is domestic waste. Domestic waste are garbage generated mainly in accommodation spaces on board ships, such as paper, cardboards, rags, glass, metal, crockery, etc. Garbage under this category is prohibited to be discharged at sea. Next category is cooking oil. Cooking oil is the edible oil or the animal fat which is used for the preparation or cooking of food. It is also prohibited to be discharged at sea. Next is incinerator ashes. These ashes are collected after incineration of garbage in the incinerator. It is also prohibited to be discharged at sea. Next category is operational waste. Operational waste are solid waste that are collected on board during normal maintenance or operation of a ship. Please note that operational waste does not include grey water, bilge water, or other similar discharges. Garbage under this category is prohibited to be discharged at sea. Next is animal carcasses. Bodies of any animals that are carried on board as cargo and that die during the voyage. These are animal carcasses. Discharge of these kind of waste are permitted at sea under specific circumstances and requirements. Next category is fishing gear. Fishing gear are physical devices which are either placed on the water or inside the water, intended for the purpose of capturing marine organisms. These are also prohibited to be discharged at sea. Next category is e-waste. E-waste means electronic waste generated on board. Your electronic cards, gadgets, instruments, equipments, computers, printer cartridges all come under this category. This is also prohibited to be discharged at sea. The next category is cargo residues. Cargo residues are remnants of any cargo which remain on deck or in the holds following cargo operations. Cargo residues have been further divided into two parts. First is non-HME, substances which are not harmful to the marine environment. And second is HME, harmful to the marine environment. Now let's have a look at this discharge table. Now if you look at this table, there are four columns. The first column gives the type of garbage. The second column is the discharge criteria when the ship is outside special area. Third is the discharge criteria when the ship is within the special area. And the fourth column tells us about discharge criteria of offshore platforms, which is not of much use to us. First is when the food waste is comminuted or ground. So the discharge of comminuted food waste is permitted outside special area, but the ship should be more than or equal to 3 nautical miles from the nearest land and en route. And when the ship is within special area, discharge is permitted. The vessel should be more than or equal to 12 nautical miles from the nearest land and en route. Food waste which is not comminuted or grounded. Outside special area, discharge is permitted, but the vessel should be 12 nautical miles or more from the nearest land and en route. And when the vessel is within special area, discharge is prohibited. For cargo residues not contained in wash water, when the ship is outside special area, discharge is permitted, but the vessel should be 12 nautical miles or more from the nearest land and en route. These cargo residues which we are talking about here, if you see clearly, there is a star in here. This means that the substance must not be harmful to the marine environment. So the cargo residues we are talking about should not be harmful to the marine environment. Next is cargo residues contained in wash water. When the ship is outside special area, discharge is permitted provided the vessel should be 12 nautical miles or more from the nearest land and en route. And when the ship is within special area, discharge is permitted provided vessel should be 12 nautical miles or more from the nearest land. It should be en route. And there are two additional conditions. When these conditions meet, then only the discharge is allowed. The first condition is the port of departure and the next port of destination are within the special area, and the ship will not transit outside the special area between these ports. And second condition is that no adequate reception facilities are available at those ports. So this is how this table goes. And if you see the last row here, e-waste and all other garbage including plastic, synthetic ropes, fishing gear, plastic garbage bag, incinerator ashes, clinkers, cooking oil, etc. As I already told you, their discharge is prohibited into the sea. Next, we'll discuss about the garbage management plan. The garbage management plan includes written procedures for collecting, storing, processing and disposing of garbage. This plan is ship specific and in the working language of the crew. Now, which ships need to carry this plan? All ships of 100 gross tonnage and above, and every ship which is certified to carry 15 or more persons, and every fixed or floating platform shall carry a garbage management plan. Now, what's inside the garbage management plan? The garbage management plan contains the procedures on minimizing the amount of garbage generated on board, the color coding for different categories of garbage, quantity of each category of garbage that the vessel can hold, in detail the handling procedures of garbage on board, and the persons responsible for each category of garbage, the guidelines on disposal of garbage, the equipments used on board for handling the garbage, the incinerators, comminutor, and the compactor, and lastly, the designation of the person or persons in charge for implementing the garbage management plan. Next is the garbage record book. All ships of 400 gross tonnage and above, and every ship which is certified to carry 15 or more persons, and every fixed or floating platform shall carry and maintain a garbage record book. So, as the name suggests, the garbage record book is basically a record of garbage to keep the track of the garbage and what happens to it. Let's look at the entries which have to be made in the garbage record book. Entry has to be made when garbage is discharged into the sea. The date and time of discharge, the position of the ship, its latitude and longitude, the category of garbage discharged, and the estimated amount of garbage discharged. Entry also has to be made when the garbage is discharged to reception facilities ashore or to other ships. The date and time of discharge, port or facility or the name of ship where we discharge the garbage, the category of garbage discharged, and the estimated amount in cubic meters. When garbage is incinerated, the date and time of start and stop of incineration, the position of start and stop, and the amount which is incinerated. Entry also has to be made when there is accidental or any other exceptional discharge of garbage, the date and time of occurrence, the position or port where it has occurred, the category of garbage which is discharged or lost, estimated amount for each category in cubic meters, and the reason and remarks for the discharge of garbage. Each of the entries have to be signed by the officer who is in charge of the operation. By this, we come to an end of this short and sweet explanation of an.
Okay, so we have seen the this component. Now this is the ozone depleting substances. So what are the regulation 12 is basically this is the chlorofluorocarbon which are generally emitting from the ship. So that are regulation for regards with that chlorofluorocarbon. This is the nitrogen oxide NOx regulation. So nitrogen oxide include NO or NO2 or the other oxide of nitrogen. The main NOx NOx nitrogen dioxide and NO2 is a reddish brown highly reactive gas that is formed in the ambient air through the oxidation of nitric oxide. The major source of man-made NOx emission are high temperature of combustion and process. So these are the regulations related to the NOx. So just you can go through. You don't need to dictate by word to word. So these are the emission control area, world map of the emission control area. So wherever the ECA areas are there, so you must have heard about this on the ship. So we are entering the ECA area, so we will not go in the deep, just we'll have the look. So the blue color is the basically the Baltic Sea, North Sea ECA area, and the green one. So these were the green ones. So these are the North American ECA area. So and some are the gray one. So these are the discussed ECA area. So this is the gray one here. Also you can see that gray one is there here. Also that the gray one is there. This side also of the part of the water gray one is there. So these are the divided into the various. These are the SOx regulations. So regulation 14, the sulfur oxide and the particulate matter. So you can see sulfur oxide, the gases are formed when fuel containing sulfur. So as we know that all the fuels that is containing the sulfur, so that generally depends upon the how much the quantity of the sulfur and what are the ratio of the sulfur contents are there. So when it is burned and during the metal smelting and other industrial process, sulfur dioxide SO2, the main sulfur oxide gas is colorless, non-flammable gas with a penetrating odor that irritates the eyes and air passage. So it reacts on the surface of the variety of airborne and the solid particles. It is soluble in the water and can be oxidized within the airborne water droplets. So it can be treated with it can be oxidized with the water. So that's why you have heard about the many ships nowadays the regulation has come to fit the scupper. So is cover generally fitted on the funnel near the funnel. So just for the controlling the emission of the fumes and the smokes, generally they minimize the sulfur content and they will dissolve in the water and they will form as like the sludge and they will be discharged into the wherever according to the regulation. These are the regulation where the outside the ICA area the SOx limit of the SOx is the 4.5% M by M volume. This is the mass by mass prior to the 1 January 2012. So before this, the ships were there were the regulation like this, and after the 1st January 2012, so it decreases by the 3.5%. And nowadays, this is the regulation is the 0.5% mass by mass on the after 1 January 2020. And same like for the ICA area. So SOx, the particulars, the 1.5%, 1.5% is the prior to the 1st July 2010. Now after the 1st July 2010, it was the 1%, and now it reduces to the 0.1%. So depending on the outcome of a review to be conducted in the 2018 as the availability of the required fuel oil, this date could be the deferred to the 1st January 2025. So these are the ICA established are the Baltic Sea area as defined as the Annex 1 Marpol SOx only, North Sea area as defined in the Annex 5 Marpol SOx only, and the North American Sea, these are the SOx and NOx both, and then United States Caribbean Sea, so these are also the SOx and NOx both global area. So most ships which operate both outside and inside these ECA will therefore operate on different fuel oils and in order to comply with the respective limits. Sorry. In such cases, prior to entry into the ECA, it is required to have the fully changed over to using the ECA compressor. So generally, we are having the two types of the fuel. When you are entering into the ECA area, so you have to change over the fuel limit. If you don't have the proper emission control plan, so that time you have to change over the fuel as required by the ECA area. So similarly, changeover from the using the ECA compliant fuel oil is not commenced until after exiting the ECA. At each changeover, it is required that the quantities of the ECA compliant fuel oil on board are recorded together with the date and time and position of the ship when either completing the changeover prior to entry or commencing the changeover after the exit from the such area. So these records are to be made in a logbook as prescribed by the ship's flag state, and in the absence of any specific requirements in this regard, the record could be made. For example, in the ship's Annex 1 oil record book. So in the oil record book, you have to keep the log. So these are the operational and design the matters. So fuel system, segregation, storage capacity tank, segregated cylinder, lube oil tanks maybe. So these are the efficiency. Just you don't need to go in the deep. So handling of the different fuels. So possible arrangement for the additional fuel oil tanks. These are the mapping of the fuel oil tanks. So where the HFO, DFO. So these are to be there, and they are the lines for that. So this is the VOC, volatile organic compound, VOC regulation. So the volatile or organic compounds or the VOCs are the organic chemicals that easily vaporize at room temperature. They are called organic because they contain carbon in their molecular structure. VOCs have a no color, smell, or taste. VOC includes a very wide range of individual substances such as hydrocarbons, for example, benzene or toluene. Halocarbons and oxygenates. Hydrocarbons VOCs are usually grouped into the methane, CH4, and other non-methane VOCs. So VOC is generated during the combustion and handling of oil products. So this VOC is the basically the volatile compound. So their this compound is generated during the combustion of the oil also. So these are also the comes under the earlier we were knowing only the SOx and NOx. So these are also the compound. These are also the regulation according to the air pollution, and we have to comply these things also. So the petroleum sector is the most important European source of emission of VOC due to the loading of crude oil onto tankers generating large quantities of VOC. So just to go through. So VOC from tankers are regulated in the ports or the terminals. So the relevant government designated which ports and terminals at which the VOC emission from tankers are to be regulated. So these are all the regulations that we have to follow and according to the MARPOL Annex 6. So you can see over here that the schematic of a vapor emission control system is there. These are the shipboard incineration. So what are the shipboard incineration? So each incinerator installed on board a ship or after the 1 July 2000 shall meet the requirement contained in the appendix 4 to this appendix. Each incinerator shall be provided approved by the administration. So of course the administration whatever that is installed on the ship that are approved by the class, and taking into the account the standard specification for shipboard incinerator refer to regulation MEPC. Shipboard incineration of the following substance shall be prohibited. Annex 1, 2, 3 cargo residues of the present convention are related to contaminated packing materials. Polychloride biphenyls PCBs. So garbage as defined in the Annex 5 of the present convention containing more than traces of heavy metal. Refined petroleum products containing halogen compounds, sewage and sludge while not generated on board. Exhaust gas cleaning system residues. So these are the regulation 6% incineration of the PVC plastic wherever the approved to do so. So regulation 16.3. These are the regulation regarding the incineration. So just you can go through. These are the information that to be included in the bunker delivery notes. So when you are taking the bunker, so in that these are the notes that it should be present. So the according to the MARPOL Annex 6 requires that the following information be included in the bunker delivery note. So what are the notes that you should be present? It should be present. So that is the name and IMO number of the ship receiving of the receiving ship. Of course, the you will receive the bunker, so your name will be there, and the what port you are taking, date of commencement of delivery, name, address, and the telephone numbers of marine fuel oil suppliers. So those are the suppliers. Their detail will be given over there. Products name, quantity, metric ton, density at 15 degrees Celsius. Sulfur content. So how much the percentage of the sulfur content is there in that fuel oil. So a declaration signed and certified by the fuel oil suppliers representative that the fuel oil supplied is in conformity with regulation 14.1 or the 4A and the regulation 18.1 of this annex. Field oil should be tested in accordance with the ISO 3675, and the star is this sulfur content. So this density, this should be tested, and the sulfur content, so this should be also tested and according with the ISO 8754. There is no specific format for a bunker delivery note, so bunker suppliers may therefore use their own stationaries provided that all required information is included. So basically these information should be there. So these all information should be there in their delivery notes, and there is no any specified format. So these are the Annex 6, the certification procedure. So you can see that intermediate and the periodically surveys. Who is the responsible? So vessels IAPP certificate. So ship owner will get the vessel IAPP certificate. And initial survey. So what are the initial survey? So with regulation 12, 14, 15 and the section 80. So NOx will be checked out, and they will be done by the ship owner shipyard. And after that, the engines EIAPP certificate. So after that, the pre-certificate survey document approval. So these are the engine specification, engine group, family specification, technical file on board. So these are the things which will be there. So these are the energy efficiency regulation. So these are the energy efficiency regulation. So this applies to all the ship which is greater than the 400 gross tonnage and every fixed floating drilling rig other platform. So these are the basic three: the energy efficiency design index EEDI and ship energy efficiency management plan, that is the SIM, and the international energy efficiency certificate, that is the IEEC. So just will see in the brief. The EEDI reflects the amount of the CO2 generated per ton mile. So EEDI, so generally it will reflect the amount of the CO2 generated per tons mile cargo carrying capacity. So it constitutes an uniform approach to calculation of a ship's energy efficiency during the design and build of new ships, and will be used to control the CO2 levels emitted by the failure new ships by the encouraging improvement in the ship design. So the calculation and the verification of EEDI is covered by the IMO regulation MEPC. So these are the regulation respectively they have done. And is SEMP. So as the SEMP is an operational measure that establishes a mechanism to improve the energy efficiency of a vessel in a cost-effective manner. So it incorporates a best practice for fuel-efficient vessel operation and urges the owner operator at each stage of the plan to consider new technologies and practices when seeking to optimize the performance of a vessel. IMO guidelines on developing a SEMP are contained in the regulation MEPC 21363. And the IEC is a statutory certificate covering both SEMP and EEDI. The certificate is valid for the life of the ship unless it undergoes major conversion, a change of flag, or the withdrawal from the service. So this will be valid till the end of the ship. After only with regards to if they are changing their flag state, or they are changing the major conversion. So suppose the bulk carrier is changing into the container is changing into the bulk carrier. So that time only it will have different certificate. So this regulation will apply. Let's see. So we have finished with the Annex 6 also. Now after that we'll see the video of the Annex 6, so that we will have the more understanding.
Hello friends, in this video we are going to get familiar with Annex 6 of MARPOL, which is regulation for the prevention of air pollution from ships. We'll be discussing some important factors causing air pollution from ships and the regulations which have been set to control this pollution and protect the environment. So let's get started. MARPOL Annex 6 entered into force on 19th of May 2005. So how is this air pollution caused? The primary and foremost reason of pollution from ships is combustion of fuel. When the fuel burns, it produces exhaust gas, which causes air pollution. This exhaust gas contains substances such as sulfur oxide, nitrogen oxide, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, particulate matter, which are all harmful to the marine environment. Also, volatile organic compounds and some ozone depleting substances are released during normal operation of the ship. So there are certain rules and regulations which are given under Annex 6 to control and reduce the emission of these substances. Before discussing them, let me tell you the effects of emission of these substances in the environment. The first adverse effect is acid rain. These substances, when suspended in the air, evaporate with the water vapor and cause acid rain. Acid rain reduces the fertility of the soil, which leads to loss of flora and fauna. It also deteriorates the human health. It causes respiratory issues in humans and also affects the cardiovascular health. Next, it causes ozone depletion. As you all know, ozone layer protects us from harmful UV rays of the sun. Substances like chlorofluorocarbon cause ozone depletion. And last but not the least is global warming. I don't need to explain what global warming is doing to the earth, melting of glaciers, temperature rising and whatnot. So first, let's discuss about the ozone depleting substances, which is Regulation 12 under MARPOL Annex 6. As the name suggests, the ozone depleting substances cause the depletion of ozone layer. Few of the ozone depleting substances you can see here are chlorofluorocarbons, hydrochlorofluorocarbons and halogens. Chlorofluorocarbons are widely used as coolants in refrigeration and air conditioner systems, and it is found that hydrochlorofluorocarbon have a shorter lifetime than the chlorofluorocarbon, and halogens are gases containing bromine which breaks down ozone in the atmosphere. So what are the regulations which have been set to control the emission of ozone depleting substances? As per MARPOL Annex 6, any deliberate emissions of ozone depleting substances shall be prohibited. Deliberate emissions mean emission occurring during maintaining, repairing or servicing of system or equipments. The next one is installations which contain ozone depleting substances other than hydrochlorofluorocarbons shall be prohibited on ships constructed on or after 19th May 2005. As I already told you, hydrochlorofluorocarbon has a shorter lifetime than chlorofluorocarbon. In other words, we can also say HCFCs are less harmful than CFCs. But this does not mean that HCFC does not cause any harm to the environment. That is why the next regulation has been set for the control of HCFC as well. So installation which contains HCFC shall be prohibited on ships constructed on or after 1st January 2020. Next, we'll be looking into NOx. NOx are nitrogenous oxides which include nitrogen oxide, nitrogen dioxide and other oxides of nitrogen. The major source of NOx emissions are high temperature combustion process. These nitrogenous oxides contribute to the formation of acid rain. So let us see to which ships NOx regulations apply to. NOx regulation apply to each marine diesel engine with a powerful output of more than 130 kilowatts installed on ships. It also applies to each marine diesel engine with a powerful output of more than 130 kilowatt which undergoes a major conversion on or after 1st January 2000. Next thing is the NOx emission control area. These are certain sea areas where there are more stringent regulations for control of emission of NOx. First is the North American Emission Control Area, the United States Caribbean Sea Emission Control Area, the Baltic Sea Emission Control Area, the North Sea Emission Control Area. The last two that you see in blue are for ships constructed on or after 1st January 2021. This is the table for NOx emission limits. This table is divided into three tiers: Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, as per the construction date of the ship. And the NOx emission limits are given in gram per kilowatt hour. This N, which you can see here, stands for engine RPM. Now first look at Tier 1. Tier 1 applies to ships constructed on or after 1st January 2000. When engine RPM is less than 130, then NOx emission limit is 17 gram per kilowatt hour. If engine RPM is between 130 to 1999, then there is a formula given for calculating the emission limit, which is 45 into n to the power minus 0.2. And when the engine RPM is 2000 or more, then the emission limit is 9.8 gram per kilowatt hour. Likewise, Tier 2 applies to ships constructed on or after 1st January 2011. So for engines with RPM less than 130, the NOx emission limit is 14.4 gram per kilowatt hour. For engines with RPM 130 to 1999, the formula is 44 into engine RPM to the power minus 0.23. And for RPM of 2000 or more, emission limit is 7.7 gram per kilowatt hour. Tier 3 regulations apply to ships constructed on or after 1st January 2016, which are operating in a dedicated NOx emission control area. So as you can see, the emission limit has been further reduced from 14.4 to 3.4 gram per kilowatt hour. And for RPMs 2000 or more, it is 2.0 gram per kilowatt hour. So as you can see in this table, NOx emission limits are reducing as you go down in the table. This clearly shows that a lot of steps are being taken to reduce the NOx emissions from ships. Next up is SOx or sulfur oxide. Sulfur oxide gases are formed when fuel containing sulfur is burned. The main sulfur oxide gas is a colorless, non-flammable gas with a penetrating odor that irritates the eyes and air passage. The SOx and particulate matter emission control applies to your fuel oils, combustion equipment which are present on board, including your main engines, auxiliary engines, together with boilers as well as inert gas generators. Now let us look at the SOx emission control areas: the North American Emission Control Area, the United States Caribbean Sea Emission Control Area, the Baltic Sea Emission Control Area, and the North Sea Emission Control Area. You must have noticed that SOx and NOx emission control areas are the same now. It is because of the two new areas which have been added in NOx emission control areas, as you have seen earlier. Now let us look at the SOx emission limits. The left column is for ships outside ANICA, and the right column is for ships which are inside a SOx emission control area. So first let us look at the left part when the ship is outside ANICA. Before 1st January 2012, the sulfur emission limits were 4.50% mass by mass. After 1st January 2012, these limits were reduced to 3.50% mass by mass. And after 1st January 2020, these limits are further reduced to 0.5% mass by mass. Now this side is for ships which are inside a sulfur emission control area. Before 1st July 2010, the sulfur emission limits were 1.5% mass by mass. After 1st July 2010, the reduced limits were 1% mass by mass. And after 1st January 2015, the sulfur emission limits were further reduced to 0.1% mass by mass. So as you can clearly see, the SOx emission regulations are becoming more stringent as the time passes by. So there are commonly two ways by which ships reduce their SOx emissions to comply with these set regulations. First is changeover of fuel. Before entering SOx emission control area, ships change over their fuel oil, which they are presently using, to a lower sulfur fuel oil to comply with the emission limits in an ECA. Another way to reduce sulfur emissions is the exhaust gas cleaning system, or commonly known as the scrubber. As the name suggests, the exhaust gas cleaning system cleans the exhaust gases produced after combustion of fuel and therefore reduce the sulfur content in it. Next thing that we are going to discuss about is the volatile organic compound. VOCs or volatile organic compounds are organic chemicals that easily vaporize at room temperature. This regulation only applies to tankers and also gas carriers only if the type of loading and containment system allows safe retention of VOCs on board or their safe return ashore. These volatile organic compounds are generated during combustion, but mainly on ships. Its main source is during handling of oil products. VOC emissions occur during loading of liquid cargo in oil tankers in the form of hydrocarbons. Also, during voyage, additional gas may be released from the cargo which is loaded and therefore emitting VOCs. So, there are certain steps which are taken to reduce these VOC emissions on board. To reduce the volatile organic compound emissions on board, a vapor emission control system is installed on ships as well as the terminals, and ship and terminals work in accordance with the standards set for the vapor emission control system. Also, it is required that crude oil tankers shall have a approved VOC management plan which is ship specific. Now, moving on to IAPPC. IAPPC stands for International Air Pollution Prevention Certificate. All ships of 400 gross tonnage and above, every fixed or floating platform and drilling rig shall be issued with an International Air Pollution Prevention Certificate. It is issued by the administration after an initial or renewal survey. In addition to the regulations that we have discussed till now, there are some energy efficiency regulations which have been set up to promote sustainable shipping. The EEDI or the Energy Efficiency Design Index reflects the amount of CO2 which is generated per ton mile. It aims at promoting the use of more energy efficiency equipment and engines. Next is SEEMP, which is the Ship Energy Efficiency Management Plan. The SEEMP is a system which is established to improve the energy efficiency of a vessel in a cost effective manner. Next thing is International Energy Efficiency Certificate. The IEEC is a certificate which covers both the SEEMP and the EEDI. This certificate is valid for the life of ship unless the ship undergoes a major conversion, a change of flag, or it is withdrawn from its service. By this, we come to an end